Penguinauts, I'm the Bearded Penguin, and welcome back to Kerbal's space program, Space Race! Today, we are sending something to Duna. Now, this is going to take quite a while because it's going to take about 330 days for this to get to Duna, so that's going to take 11 turns. But I think it's a pretty worthwhile investment because it's going to get us a hell of a lot of science when it does eventually get there. It's only a tiny probe, doesn't have any materials bays, but it does have all the other scientific instruments and a few goos, so it should be able to get us quite a lot of science. And also we've got a really well paid contract to go explore Ike, so this has actually got some little landing legs and it should have enough fuel to land on Ike, which should be pretty interesting. Now, we actually missed the Duna window by a couple of days. It was actually during Tape's turn, but even though it's a couple of days later, we've got enough fuel to compensate for that. So with a couple of corrections, a couple of days late on the window doesn't make a huge difference, so it should be fine. It's only tiny little probe, and as I said, it doesn't have any materials bays, so it can land on Ike, so we should get a hell of a lot of money in the future. This is going to take 11 turns to get there. I think the next window is a Moho window, which is in Tape's turn, so Tape might send something to Moho. I don't know. Maybe. Usually you get contracts for Duna, though not for Moho, but I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, this episode is a little delayed. A couple of you did notice, and that's because it's really weird. Right, so I've got a condition. I don't even know if it is an actual condition, but my bones grow faster than my muscles do. This sounds really weird, but so my bones grow. And my muscles don't grow quite as fast, and they get stretched, and then they go into spasm. They're like, oh god, if in doubt, seize up and don't let the person move. Because evolutionary logic. So, my muscles locked up and went into protective spasm. And then I couldn't move for a few days. Had to go to an osteopath to loosen them up. And then, since they damage themselves a lot when they go into spasm, I've been having to recover from that for the last few days. So that's been quite painful and stuff. But it happens really often, and I guess I'm going to be stuck with it until I stop growing. But anyway, so we are sending a SSTO to Minmus now. An unmanned one this time, after the disaster that was last turn. And Tape's turn! SSTOs are damn dangerous. It has got a cockpit, mainly just because we don't have a Mark II nose cone, so I just put a cockpit on it, and that's where we store most of our electric charge and our monopropellant. Now, the reason we're sending this to Minmus and not doing well-paid contracts or anything is because we have got a contract that pays really well, which is to do a load of temperature readings in an area on the moon. And a rover would just be perfect for that. So I thought, okay, we need about, I think we needed about 500 and something science to get our rover wheels. So I thought, okay, you know what? We're going to send some probes to Minmus with our planes, and we're going to just about get enough science to get those rover wheels so we can go do that contract on the moon. So, after our Duna launch, off to Minmus we went. I was pretty happy with this first mission. I didn't forget to put material bays on. I just sort of thought, nah. I don't know, I couldn't think of a place to put them, and then I realised, oh, I could have just put them behind the air intakes. Why did I not do that? I don't know. But so we didn't have any materials bays, so we didn't get as much science as we could have. But it's fine. We still get a lot of science from this mission, so it's all quite nice. And yeah, we're just owning Tape. I mean, Tape had to do an old school SSTO to try and keep up with us, which is pretty cool. I mean, I've never really been that into SSTOs. I've never been a particularly SSTO guy, but they're ridiculously useful in this series. So SSTO all the way, I guess. But yeah, so that was pretty impressive, Tape. They actually managed to get an SSTO working with freaking afterburning engines and like a T-30 rocket engine, whereas I can barely get them to work with actual Sabre engines and a nuclear engine. I could have actually completed my nuclear engine contract, which is to test the engine in orbit of Minmus, but if I did that I wouldn't have access to this. And this, I don't know how I got a contract to test this engine. Like, seriously, this is quite a few nodes away before we unlock the nuclear engine. So yeah, obviously I didn't do that contract because then I would lose the use of my nuclear engine. And yeah, the fuel doesn't drain properly, so I had to transfer a load of fuel in halfway through the burn, which is a little bit annoying. And by this time I was like, yeah, kind of burnt a little way past the nodes, so I just thought, okay, you know, just orbit around again. Just do a second orbit, makes it more efficient, and it's all much nicer. I am sitting here in a dressing gown with coffee, though. Such a professional commentator, listening to smooth jazz while drinking coffee on a lovely day in England. It's not very often, but we do actually we're having some really nice weather recently. So it's actually been really sunny, and I couldn't enjoy it because I had to lie down on a bed, seized up, doing freaking revision because, oh my god, exams, it's like serious exams in like 2 days, and I'm making this video instead of revising. Like, the things I do for you guys, like, come on. Oh, that, like, muscles, what is with that? It's like, how did evolution allow that to happen? If in doubt, seize up and damage yourself. What? It's a bit weird. Kind of on the same level as allergies. I'm a really weird person. I am allergic to my own hair. And everyone, when people find that out, they're like, what? But yeah, like, not when it's on my head, but if I have a haircut and any of it lands on me, it comes out in massive rashes. And, like, my body, I don't get allergies. Like, it's your immune system overreacting. But when it's part of your own body, it's like, oh, a part of your hair landed on skin. Self-destruct! Like, some people can die from eating nuts. Like, what? How? I don't get it. This is becoming a bit of more of a, well, yeah, I'm not really commentating on what's happening in the video as such. It's more of just me projecting my thoughts. It's just like, this series is much like Tape City Skylines. It's just an insight into my mind while some gameplay runs on in the background. And I thought, even though we've landed on the greater flats before, I thought I'd just land on them because I've never landed a plane on an airless body before. Or I've never sent an SSTO to another world before. As I said, I've never really used SSTOs, but I thought, you know, okay, we'll just land on a really flat area to play this safe. So we landed, instead of actually landing like a plane, we just landed straight on the back. And I thought, we've got a bit of fuel left. Yeah, well, let's go for a little drive. Let's just go for a chill. So we just leant ourselves forward and went for a little drive to see how much science we could get. So we went exploring all the way up the hills and got a hell of a lot of science, actually. Obviously, we had to transmit all of it. We couldn't recover it and bring it back. We do not have anywhere near enough fuel for that. In future, perhaps we will when I get better at building SSTOs, but I mean, we're not going to be doing a turbo pumped and sending like a 3-ton SSTO around the universe. No, we are probably just going to be doing things around Kerbin. Although Tape did send something into Solar Orbit, which we could have done, but we already sent our Duna probe into Solar Orbit, and we did all our resettable experiments. We transmitted data from there, so that was fine. We got all our world firsts from that, and we're going to Duna, which is cool. 30 days later, I don't think Tape will be able to send anything to Duna. If he put a lot of fuel onto it, he probably could, maybe, but it's more likely he'll try and send something to Moho, although you will need a lot more fuel to go to Moho than Duna. But anyway, yeah, we're just continuing around. For some reason, this isn't Highlands, this is still Midlands. I'm not entirely sure why that is. It's pretty high up. But I guess there are much higher places on Minmus. So I thought, we'll just drive down here and see if we can get up that other mountain, see if that counts as Highlands. But we did land a little hard and blew off our engine. I mean, we only had like a couple of units of fuel left anyway. So we just thought, okay, how far can our momentum carry us? It turns out not particularly far. We keep getting notified of like that we can do a crew report because we have a cockpit, but we don't actually have anybody on board. So yeah, we just sort of braked, and I was like, okay, we'll just leave this here. It'll be fine. So sending the next one. This one has actually got materials bays because we didn't quite have enough science to get our robot wheels. So I thought, okay, we'll send another one to another area of Minmus and see how we do. This one, even though we had the material bays, which I guess adds a bit more weight, we did this a lot less efficient. And we launched slightly late, so we had to do an inclination change. And yes, we blew off the cockpit. So thank God nobody was actually in this one. I guess it loses a bit of weight, but the problem is then we don't have any monopropellant because it was all stored in there. So we had to use the reaction wheel, which means we did sort of drift a little bit. It was a little tough to control. And we also lost most of our electric charge store, which was in the cockpit, because that thing had about 500 units of electric charge we stored in it, which did cause us some problems later on. So although we lost some weight, we lost a lot of resources and stuff. So yeah, we had another contract to get science data from space around Kerbal. I'm not entirely sure why we keep getting those. But we do. It's just a bit of easy money, I guess. 20,000 funds. Just a bit of free money, and it's all very nice. I do wonder, is Tape going to get a contract to unlock the engine? We are still very far ahead of him in the science. Like, he's trying to claim he landed on Minmus first. Like, come on. No, you didn't, Tape. No, you didn't. You didn't. Just leave. Get out. He's like that kid. You know that when you're in school and you're in your friend group, and that kid just kind of tries to scrape in, and he tries to pretend he's part of the conversation. Like maybe you're talking about something that annoys you. He's like, oh yeah, that annoys me so much, and everyone's just looking at him like, you are not welcome in this conversation. That's tape right now. Okay, he's just like, oh yeah, I landed on. No, you didn't, Tape. No, you didn't. You didn't. You didn't. I don't care what argument you try to use. You didn't land on Minmus first. Anyway, yeah. So this one we had to actually do an inclination change, which wastes a lot of fuel. We don't like wasting fuel in our space program. Our space program is just amazing. We like saving our fuel. We like saving the planet, even though, well, this is hydrogen. So. That's something funny, actually. Now, I think traveling by rocket is better for the environment than traveling by plane, because most NASA rockets anyway. I mean, a lot of rockets still use kerosene and stuff, but a lot of NASA rockets, especially the Space Launch System, use hydrogen and oxygen, which the only product of that is water. So, freaking, let's just travel by rockets. Screw planes. Just let's just travel everywhere using freaking rockets, man. That would be awesome. Just fly everywhere with rockets. I mean, they do that in Brave New World, if you've ever read that book. They fly everywhere in rockets, because planes are for nerds, man. Because who wants to wait hours to get somewhere? I mean, we did have Concorde, I guess, but they got rid of Concorde because bloody French, man. Not many people do actually know the reason why Concorde was actually scrapped. Everyone's like, oh, it's just because, reasons in Concorde crash. It was because the French, bloody French, no offense to any French viewers, they refused to use it for transatlantic flights, which is what it was freaking designed for. And if you didn't use it for transatlantic flights, it wasn't cost effective. And so they thought, okay, this is basically making us losses, and they put up the price of the spare parts astronomically. And so since the price of the spares was so ridiculously high, that then drove it into the ground, because obviously the British Concorde then couldn't afford to buy spare parts, and then it wasn't economical to do it. I mean, before then, even though you only had like 100 people on the flight or something, you only had to have like 40 people on the flight, and it paid for itself. And they always had, Concorde was always full, it was always in demand and stuff, and it was making money until the damn French, and then people got put off the Concorde crash and stuff, and then everyone was just like, yeah. But the Concorde crash, everyone's like, oh, it's caused by a bit of titanium on the runway. No, it wasn't. It was caused by negligence, again, on the French part. Sorry, I'm slacking off the French a lot. Nothing wrong with French people, it's just the French people who ran Concorde were a little bit lame, really, and it was negligence on their part. They didn't look after the aircraft properly, and they overfilled the tanks. So when one of the tyres did burst, which was a tyre that should have been replaced anyway, and it hit the tank, instead of just it being fine, since the tanks were overfilled, it basically caused the entire wing to... stuff happened. Just Google the Concorde crash. But anyway, we didn't have enough fuel to land properly, so I thought, you know what, let's land horizontally. We had just enough fuel to cancel out our vertical velocity, so we just drifted down, and there we go, we just landed horizontally. But we did not have enough braking power on this ice to slow down, so we did all of our scientific experiments, apart from the seismometer, which we ran out of electric charge. We couldn't quite transmit all the data, which did annoy me. If we had the cockpit, we would have been able to do it. And but sadly, we couldn't brake in time, and we smashed into the mountain. But we did manage to transmit all of our scientific data from the lesser plane. So there we go. We are able to unlock our wheels. And now it's time to head to the moon with Muna 4. This time we've actually we haven't got any tourists or anything this time. We are generally just taking Bill for the first time, actually. Bill the engineer, because, well, we're taking a rover with wheels that could brake, so we need an engineer for once. Because engineers are just useless, really, aren't they? Like, what are they actually good for? Let's be honest. I mean, scientists used to be the useless ones until they could clean experiments, and now they can clean experiments. The engineers are the useless ones, really. Max Gear is our new pilot after Valentina sadly perished, which really isn't helping the Soviet image, is it? I mean, Tape's lost someone on re-entry, and we've lost someone in space from suffocation, which really reflects real life, because the Soviets, it was one of these Soyuz missions, they had rapid... the capsule rapidly depressurized, and all 3 members died of asphyxiation, and that was the only people to ever die in space. And that's the Soviets. So we're really not helping this whole Soviet image, are we? But, you know, whatever. Whatever. I'm just going to embrace it now. Tape is that capitalist pig dog. So, and Tape lost people on re-entry, which, although I think the Ruskies have probably lost people on re-entry before, I think the Americans are far more well known for it, you know, after disasters like Columbia, God rest their souls, burnt up on re-entry. Now, I had one of my friends actually say, when we were talking about the space shuttle missions and stuff, and I said, oh yeah, you know, the ones that failed, Challenger blew up on launch, and you had Columbia burn up on re-entry, and he was like, oh no, it didn't burn up, they lost contact. I'm like, yeah, they lost contact because it melted in the atmosphere. And it's like, no, they lost contact, it could have been abducted by aliens. It's like, conspiracy theorists, man. I mean, moon hoax theorists, I think, just don't deserve to live half the time. When you hear some of their theories, they really annoy me. But when he's like, oh, they lost, like, it came back on re-entry and they saw bits of it melt, and then they lost contact. And he's like, oh, but they lost contact and therefore aliens. No, that's not how it works. You lose contact doesn't equal aliens, it equals they burnt up, very sadly. But anyway, so here we are heading to the moon, and we have a little area in the northern basin to go explore. And since obviously we don't carry enough fuel on these missions, because these are very budget, like only just in the level 2 launch pad restrictions, so we don't have enough fuel to go hopping around. So I thought, you know, could bring a rover. Why not? Because rovers are cool, and I love rovers. Rovers are just pretty awesome, and usually you don't really have much reason to bring them, but contracts like this, where you have to do temperature scans all over the surface, do actually give you reason to bring rovers, which is all very nice. Like Apollo 15 was the first one to bring rovers, and you had 16 and 17 also brought rovers, because 15, 16 and 17 were actually much longer term missions. Apollo 11 was really cautious. Like, they only went 100 meters from the LEM, and then they went back in, and they went back after I think only a few hours really on the surface. But the later ones, 15, 16 and 17, they spent a couple of days on the moon doing all sorts of research and stuff, because they were much more comfortable with it. And I feel sorry for the poor bugger who's stuck in space, stuck in orbit for all that time. I mean, nobody remembers Michael Collins, the guy on Apollo 11 who didn't land on the moon. Poor Michael Collins. I think Michael Collins is my hero. Like, he's just an absolute badass. Went on Apollo 11 and nobody remembers him because too many names. That's good. That's good stuff. But I mean, it's all about being first, really, isn't it? Like, not many people remember that Buzz Aldrin was the second man on the moon, and a lot of people don't even remember Yuri Gagarin. Everyone's like, genuinely, a lot of my friends, like, I know intelligent people. You ask them who's the first man in space, they'll say, oh, it was Neil Armstrong. No, it's the first man on the moon. I'm complaining about my friends a lot today, actually, aren't I? Yeah, you're all cool guys, but, you know, you're just a bit dumb sometimes. But anyway, there's our little dinky rover. We put down a little flag, which was also a contract, so we got a little bit more money. Oh, it's just drowning in funds right now, really. And there we go. We're gonna make it rain in the mission control. They just throw in dollar imperialism. No, what's Soviet currency? I don't even know. I don't even know what Soviet currency is. But anyway, so just driving around, getting our temperature scans from all the different areas, and you know, it was quite sedate actually. I just put on some tunes in the background. I just held down the W key while trying to do some revision. It didn't really work that well, but you know, it was fine. It was fine. And then we had to leave this little crater, and yeah, that took a little while because we had to drive an incline because the incline was too steep for the little motors in the wheels to actually overcome. So we had to drive at a bit of an angle to try and get out of there. But we did, and even though we drove out of that massive crater, we're still in the northern basin. Like, this is a huge area, this basin, and that's a big crater. That's only a tiny little crater in what is essentially a massive crater. And then I thought, let's just play Mario Kart. Just on the way back, I thought, oh, what the hell? We don't need the rover anymore. Let's just tumble all the way back. So I just drove off at full speed, and we tumbled down, and things got a little bit extreme. I think they had the time of their lives there. And I thought they died, but fortunately they got out. Hopefully with only a concussion, so I think they were mostly unharmed. But after a high-speed collision like that on the moon, I'm pretty sure they didn't get out of that completely unscathed. I'm sure that they'll be fine. They'll be fine. It'll be good. It'll be good. So there we go, we had a nice little trek in the rover, and it's time to head home. So yet again we're running low on fuel, although we did have a much better fuel situation this time than we had last time, because we put a little more fuel into the service propulsion stage and a little less fuel into the lander stage. So it was all fine, we just burnt as far as we could, got to our apparatuses, and I think we had like exactly one unit of liquid fuel left. So efficiency at its finest, ladies and gentlemen, efficiency at its finest. I'm going to have some more coffee. Everyone assumes that just because I'm British I drink tea all the time. I do like tea, but I prefer coffee, I genuinely do. I'm just trying to get a view of the exploding stuff. But yeah, I don't know, everyone seems to have this view that all British people have to like tea, and tea is nice and all, but I really do just prefer coffee. Coffee is better. Please just put in the comments below, do you prefer tea or do you prefer coffee? That is a serious question. But anyway, there we go, we just came back down, landed, almost crashed into a mountain, but we were fine. And lots of money, lots of science, and although it would take a while for our Duna probe to reach Duna, I think it's a worthwhile investment, and yeah, all in all, not a bad turn. Thank you for watching, everyone. This has been KSP Space Race, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone!